Hello everybody, it's Mars41 and welcome back to another episode of History of Beta. I'm so sorry that I took that long to make one of these episodes. There's a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to get into it. But I will say, if you want to hear those reasons, just watch this video right here. And at a certain point, I would say why it has been a while. But anyways, not for talk right now. Let's just get started. Today we're looking at the beta of the Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But for this specific video, we're just looking at Sonic 3's manual stuff. Because of this game being split into two games in Pacific, we're going to have to split this video into two parts. One for Sonic 3 portion and one for Sonic and Knuckles portion. And it's going to be like a little bit interesting. And we're going to get as much ground as possible. And that way, if we split these two in half, we can narrow it down to make it a lot easier for us. So, let's get into it. Alright, let's look at the opening cutscene, because this has changed from the beta to the final first thing. In the final game, Sonic took a plane and then jumps off and then transformed to Super Sonic, and then when he gets to the island, he gets knocked off by Knuckles and Knuckles steals his emeralds and runs off. But in the beta, Sonic gets to Angel Island by using a surfboard. And when they get onto the island, when he immediately starts the level, Knuckles does not pop out or steal any of his emeralds, which also shows that Sonic is not Super Sonic in that cutscene. This could mean originally this game was slowly meant to be like a vacation type of thing, instead of an investigation thing where they have to check about Death Egg in the exposing island. Also in this scene, it shows here that Sonic Sprite looks like it has a Sonic 2 design. This means that this scene must have taken cut early in development. Alright, let's get to the snapshots that were taken during development of this game. This screenshot is the introduction of Angel Island Zone. It shows Knuckles introducing Sonic. The differences in this picture is that Knuckles' socks and the HUD above Sonic are green, while in the final game, Knuckles' socks and the HUD is yellow. These three screenshots right here are from Hydro City Zone Act 1. There's most differences in this one from the final game. Operating for the green flora background, the water is headed differently too. In the final game, a pesto 3D effect simulating the surface of the waterway into the distance is created depending on the camera's wide position. Here, it seems to be entirely missing, leading to the situation while a large pool of water in the background is seen underneath the large pool of water in the foreground. We have this screenshot right here of the introduction of Act 2 of Hydro City Zone. It may not look change, but if you look closely inside, you'll see that some bricks are different, as you see here. This is a screenshot of Carnival Night Zone Act 2 while underwater. This suspicious palette of Act 2's underwater section is proved to be an error. Apply Launch Base's underwater palette to the section, and you'll get similar results. So basically, most likely, this texture of the water is completely like dark colored instead of light colored, more differently actually. These next two screenshots are from the snowboarding section of Ice Cap Zone. Originally Sonic wasn't meant to go down the section as a snowboard. Instead, he was meant to be running down there. It seems weird to me, but whatever. What else does it go? Here is another snapshot on competition mode, which is the multiplayer for Sonic 3. As you see, if you look at the number of laps that you went through, the number counter is blue instead of red. And then there are other snapshots that are shown in here, but there's nothing that much interesting about them other than the fact that there's a Sonic 2 sprite. We pretty much already knew this part of the story. Michael Jackson helped compose Sonic 3's music, and with all of his work, Sega just backed out. His songs are still in the game, but here's an interesting fact right here. Take a close listen to Ice Cap Zone Act 1. Now, Brad Buster, Michael Jackson's musical producer, at one point, worked formerly in a band that made this song. Now here's what it looks like when they're both together. Strange, isn't it? It even goes deeper with MJ being not creative into the game. Because here's this quote from Brad. If he's not credited for composing the music, it was because he was not happy with his sound coming out of the console. At that time, game consoles did not allow optimal sound reproduction, and Michael found it frustrating. He did not want to be associated with the product that developed his music, Brad Buster. So, pretty much, yeah, so Michael Jackson not made the music confirmed. Now let's go to concept art, because it's most likely really that important. But mostly it's all for Ice Cap. This concept art is the ice level that Sonic was currently in. This screenshot is the Ice Cap Zone's concept, where it shows Sonic running away from ice things falling from the ceiling. This concept art shows Sonic actually snowboarding. And this character concept art, which actually shows, well, for some weird reason, shows how you can draw Sonic tutorial. Wonder what's I have no idea why that's in the files, but it means it actually tells us how to draw them. Next up, let's go to unused sprites. This is going to be really interesting. This is a waiting animation being unused for Sonic. It's more likely the one just like in Sonic 2, only different. This unused sprite was shown that Sonic was actually whistling. Maybe it was most likely used to actually contact Tails for him to lift up to locations you want to go to, or if Tails is actually off screen somewhere else. Okay, now this is pretty much interesting because I'm pretty sure a lot of you may notice this in the competition mode. Originally, Knuckles would have a gliding animation, but he does not have one in the final game. There's an animation for when he glides in certain directions, there's an animation for dropping, and there's an animation for climbing up walls. Pretty much like he does in the final game's single-player mode in Sonic & Knuckles or Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This is a running animation for Eggman that is in Sonic 3's files. However, it's being unused because there wasn't a scene where Eggman had to run. Instead, it's being used in Sonic & Knuckles, which is actually later down the line. So, I have no idea why it's in there, but it is in the next game. There is another unused sprite for Eggman. It's him and his Eggmobile turning and going towards the horizon. I think it's most likely used for Launch Base Zone when, after you defeat him, he flies off into the Death Egg. That pretty much makes most sense, actually. While in debug mode in Angel Island Zone Act 1, you can actually change your sprite to a red 3D sphere in a 3D motion. I don't know what the purpose of this thing, but I think it's most likely used for testing out special stages. You can actually also control this thing, but it leaves up no purpose gameplay-wise. This is an unused competition map for multiplayer, and it looks sort of like Flying Battery Zone in 2-player mode. Very interesting. This unused sprite was a penguin from Ice Cap Zone Act 1 and 2. It shows an animation of the penguin going diagonal-wise, as in like down a hill. I believe it's most likely used when, as I said before, when Sonic is running down the steep hill in the beginning. But other than that, it's being unused in the game. This sprite looks like an egg bomb. We don't know what it's used for. This sprite animation is Tails asking Sonic to get ready to get out of the continue screen. In the final Sonic 3 continue screen, if you get a game over, Tails does not initially does this. Now this part is more important. It's the level select for Sonic 3 alone. If you want to access this thing, click the link in the description and there'll be a tutorial of how to be able to be accessing it. Now, once you do access it, you're going to see a few things here, and they're most likely really interesting. When we see through the level select, we see that Flying Battery, Mushroom Valley, and Sandopolis were shown here. Now, when you click on these in the level select, they don't let you go in. It means like you cannot go in at all. However, you can actually be able to hack it using an action replay code. But the stage most look like test rooms. The Flying Battery test room looks sort of like Ice Cap Zone, but it's way too corrupted. It's really definitely like a big mess in this place. You can actually walk all around this place, and yeah, you can also make it to the boss of Flying Battery Zone, and it's fully functional. Speaking of unused levels, there's an unused special stage in the game. There's an 8th special stage that you can actually access using the level select. If you set the sound test to number 7 and then hold A, B, or C and then enter the stage, then you will have access to the stage. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the stage was blue and green, but in Sonic 3 alone, it's blue and purple. But it's pretty much the same exact stage, there's no difference whatsoever. But here, you want to know the reason why this thing is cut off? It's because it's length and difficulty. Now, when you beat the special stage, it does not add to your counter. But do you know what's more interesting? In Sonic 3 and Knuckles' special stage of it, you get a yellow Chaos Emerald. The yellow Chaos Emerald was meant to be the second Chaos Emerald in Sonic 3 alone, which is yellow. But in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it was orange. So, this is big coincidence. But in Sonic 3 alone special stage, once you complete it, you get a gray Chaos Emerald, which happens to be the 6th Chaos Emerald you get in Sonic 3 alone. In debug mode, you can actually change the icon to the monitor, which is an S monitor. And what does it do? It gives you 50 rings and gives you infinite super without the need of collecting the Chaos Emeralds, in which case you immediately transform into Super Saiyan. Now, for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, when Tails grabs it, he turns into Super Tails like he normally would during the actual game when he gets the Super Emeralds. However, if you hit the monitor as Tails in Sonic 3 alone, you get this. It's a humongous glitched out textures of Tails because the super form for Tails is not implemented. It's not implemented yet. So, and what makes it more like glitchy, it pretty much acts like regular Sonic instead of regular Super Tails. And the ring counter just stays at 50 but does not drop down. Sonic 3 alone has one unused audio track, which happens to be a replacement version of the credits theme. Now, it may start up sound like Sonic and Knuckles' ending theme, but if you wait until we get to the first, section of what stages are from, you'll actually notice that there are actually sounds from Sonic 3 alone's and Sonic and Knuckles. So, this is pretty much interesting. I'm only gonna play, just the first 3 sections of that song in this. If you want to hear the full-length version, click the link in the description. So that's pretty much all the beta stuff we find in Sonic 3, but there is more to come. As you may know, along the way in your adventures in Sonic 3 alone and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you may notice some differences of placement items along your path through the game, and I've recently seen a lot of these things recently. So, instead of me explaining them to you, I created a slideshow which shows both versions, but also shows what differences are in both games. But also, after the end of this section of the slideshow, we're just gonna go into 1 or 2 of these things with more detail, because there is some much more in detail, so you can understand. Now, since you've seen them, let's go into some of these more in detail. First off is Angel Island Zones Act 1. No, Act 2, actually. When you get to the waterfall climb and head towards where these rocks are in the far top left, when you look up, you may notice that there's 3 rings that are inside a wall and impossible to get. While if you look at Sonic 3 and Knuckles, they're not there anymore because the programming already finally knows that these rings didn't need to be there. But also, there's this set of rocks that is on top of other rocks right there that makes you think that maybe there's like a way you can cliff in there and somehow get the ring somehow? I don't know if that's even a thing or not. But if it is, that must be a big glitch. Next is in Marble Garden Zones Act 2 when you're about to face the second time to see a cutscene with Robotnik in Sonic's portion. Now, along the way, you may see this pillar that is, well, you may not see this pillar in Sonic 3 alone, but when Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you can actually see this pillar. Now, why is that pillar there for? Well, after you beat the game with after you beat the game as Knuckles and have the Super Emeralds, you can actually farm a lot of along the way to be able to get to the next hopper before you bust through and actually start to enter the area where you have a path between going up as Knuckles' path or right as Sonic's path. You must grab a topper, be sure if your super form is on, and then instead of going up, you go right. That topper can destroy that one pillar, and then what you can do is glide on top above the totem pole, and then slowly claw down, but carefully, onto the eye and will slowly take damage. And then, boom, it's now destroyed. And when you get to the boss, at the end, you might be thinking, how is Knuckles definitely going to get through this boss? Well, at least the game actually made it programmed that Tails is able to help you as Knuckles. This is really a really nice concept, actually. But after you beat it, the transition, weird. The first transition begins from going down as Tails carries you downwards, while the second transition you just ran from somewhere else. Next is in Ice Cap Zone Act 1. There is a glitch that you can perform to be able to access Knuckles' first area and also his second area of this cavern, where Knuckles' path shows that you have to glide down to avoid these ice sparkles. In Sonic 3 alone, if you enter this area as Super Sonic does actually manage to be harmful against these things and actually takes damage. But you can also do this again in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but in this game, you can actually still, when you hit these things, you can still be Super Sonic no matter how many times you hit these things. Next is also in Hydro City Zone Act 2. I actually skipped this one for some weird reason. Once you enter the second boss in Hydro City Zone, once you fight the boss with Super Sonic, once you defeat the boss, you're still in super form, which means you can actually get to the capsule as Super Sonic. And when you hit the capsule, yellow text appeared, but it's still registering that you're Super Sonic. While in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, after you defeat the boss, your super form cancels out like it normally should. Lastly, it's in Launch Base Zone Act 2. After you defeat the first boss and start to be able to get into the Eggmobile, in Sonic 3 alone, you're still Super Sonic, and while you're going through this cutscene, your rings are draining down to 0. And when you get to the boss, I'm pretty sure your ring counter is at 0 right now, unless you have a big supply of rings. That could be a difficult boss fight for you. However, in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, once you defeat the boss, your super form cancels out, and when you get to the second boss, you can actually reactivate it and take care of the boss. Although in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, they don't let you fight the final boss anyway, so what's the point of being Super Sonic if there's not gonna be a third boss to fight? So that is pretty much the beta of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 alone. For a stop-link title like this, Sega definitely created like one of the best games in the franchise than planning to make something like this. And overall, though this whole game is incomplete, when we head to part 2, which can cover Sonic and Knuckles' portion, we might find more interesting evidence of why it transformed into Sonic 3 and Knuckles together. But most importantly, this game definitely has a lot of things to uncover. So if you want to hear the unused audio track, and if you want to hear the music I showed you for Ice Cap just for Ice Cap, click the links in the description. If you want to see the dictionary about Michael Jackson, about composing Sonic 3's soundtrack, click the other link in the description. Also, if you want to know how to get the level select for Sonic 3 alone, click the link in the description. Also, as a reminder for everybody else, for every other video that I make, after the announcement video, if you wish to challenge me in the Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS, there's the announcement video in the top left corner of the screen for you to click on. Once you click on it, you must follow the rules in that video, and you may have free access to have an epic brawl in Super Smash Bros. 4 for the 3DS. In your hands against me, Marcus41. So this has been Marcus41 with this episode of History of Beta. Tune in for part 2 when we take out Sonic and Knuckles' portion and see exactly what Sonic and Knuckles have to offer.